It would be difficult for a man to rent enough room to store all the memories gathered from living in a small town. That's what much of life in Phoebus reflects. The mirrors of any main street in any small town in America. There are actually two main streets in this particular part of Hampton. Neither is officially named Main. They are Mallory and Mellon, and they are the crossroads of a dying breed, the neighborhood. People are proud here in Phoebus that they know one another. Most can recognize an outsider, but all say hello to the ones they do know, on the street or in front of a local restaurant.
What do you say, Louis?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Pretty good.
All right.
How's the weather?
If there could be two things that keep this neighborhood, which was officially and legally absorbed by the city of Hampton more than 25 years ago, together they would be pride and a sense of history.
Phoebus took off in the Civil War. There was right across Mill Creek from Fort Monroe was a big farm called Roseland Farm, owned by Joseph Seeger, who was a Union sympathizer. After the war, in about 1871, Joseph Seeger became a cropper. He was overextended. The war caught a lot of people short. So Seeger's farm was put up for sale, was divided into building lots, and that opened up what's today Phoebus. Okay, the people who bought in there were the veterans, the people with capital, the military, they had money, the blacks, a great many black entrepreneurs or homeowners, newly freed people looking for a place to stay. It almost turned the century. They had begun to think of it as Phoebus because Harrison Phoebus was bringing the railroad in at this time, and he'd taken over the Hygeia Hotel, and he was really leading the vanguard. So in 1900, when they incorporated as a town, they named it in his honor. It became Phoebus.
But it is a past that some would say has been a little checkered. If some of the old buildings on Mellon Street could talk, what stories they would tell. Stories beginning with Union soldiers in the Civil War. Many a serviceman stationed in Tidewater from the Spanish-American War through World War II has memories of liberties in Phoebus, a different Phoebus from the one now. Those men might remember a place known as Little Chicago, and it might not surprise some of them that the only adult theater in all of Hampton stands right next door to a present-day councilman's clothing store in Phoebus. Nelson Fuller's family was here during those years, too. For every year but one of the 20th century, his family's restaurant has served the kind of filling, stick-to-the-ribs, inexpensive meals that many military men and others remember.
Small shrimp plate, 2 crab cake sandwiches, 2 bowls of clean chowder, and 2 small fries.
Nelson Fuller remembers, too, stories passed down in his family of a Phoebus which catered to soldiers' wants.
Well, being on the end of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad, it's big Chicago. The train went that way, and it came this way. Conductors and tradesmen used to call it Little Chicago. And of course, during the Spanish-American War era, when the sailors got fighting with the soldiers in the streets, and you had open saloons, it was a colorful town. And but everybody loved it, and it wasn't in Norfolk, and it wasn't in Norfolk till 1910, as far as the naval base goes. Because you see why they came to Phoebus, and they ended up in Newport News, and they would come back to on Monday morning to catch the ships at Fort Monroe docks, and they'd be dressed up in kimonos and garters on, and had bed pans, and a lot of them are bruised up. They've been in fights. You know how our sailors have been at sea for 6 months.
The military still plays an important, although perhaps now more daytime role in the area's existence. The merchants worry about the possible closure of Fort Monroe. 40% of their business comes from that post. And it's old soldiers from the nearby Veterans Hospital and other parts of town who seem never to die, but instead fade away into the scenery of a place like Fuller's, swapping stories and passing time.
This sermon I've heard in a long time. He said, in fact, it was a damn fine service. And the minister said, I wish you wouldn't use damn. So he said, well, I thought it was such a damn fine service, I put $500 in the collection plate. The minister said, the hell you say?
the hell you say? Oh, Lord George.
Watching the men in the bars and listening to their memories helps to cement certain impressions that a day spent in Phoebus leaves etched on your mind. It seems almost to be a step back in time, a time when it was our country, unquestionably right, seldom if ever wrong. When men were men, the breadwinners of their families, and women occupied more traditional roles. When children were seen, if rarely heard, and young professionals left places like this to make their fortunes in the bigger cities. But now things look like they may be changing, at least a little. On a day when school is out, bikes and the children who ride them crowd the streets and sidewalks. And it's a stained glass store run by some younger folks still in their 30s, which now occupies a place of honor on the corner of Mellon and Mallory. The new and the old are all a part of the hopes of a still active Phoebus Civic Association. Hopes that a small town with a past can remain a lively community with a future.